how you think, and I'll, share what I think, and we get the collaborative ideas. I will share what has made me successful as an architect over the years, as we think like an architect. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Walter Spinrad. I've been in technology for, well, you can see by the white in the beard, quite a bit over 30 years now. I've been in the Salesforce space since 2008. I actually worked for Salesforce from 2015, to 2022. And then I was offered a position to run the architect group for the Salesforce division at Crow in 2022. So I decided, let's try a new adventure. It's been fun so far. And we can thank Crow for the use of their training room. They are a good partner. So went through the welcome. We're going to just kind of do the architect mindset. I want to review some of the basic Salesforce security model stuff, talk about how we identify personas and why it's important. And then we're going to dive into the scenario and apply what we talked about to the scenario. So as we look at the scenario, how do we consume it? How do we break it down? And how do we dissect the parts of it to apply what we want to solve? So we know we're holistically solving it, but tonight's focus is on security and visibility. So what are things we want to consider as we read the scenario? What are things that are important to read in the scenario that will help you decide what type of sharing and what type of security to set up? Before I go any further, any other topics that attendees want me to cover? I will take silence as no, we are happy with what you have. Okay, for some reason, my slide deck is not. There we go. And Brittany has rejoined us after trying to corral some folks. Hey, Brittany, can you do me a favor?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm gonna need her charge because that thing's dying, or else I will not get home because that is the key to my car.
You don't carry a manual car key?
I do not.
Oh my God, you would.
I can get into my car if I have to without that and plug that in and then still get where I need to.
Baseball bat? How do you manage that one?
No, I have the key code. I smile and the door recognizes me and opens.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. The Mach-E isn't that smart. All right, so real quick, we'll do a quick overview of the architect mindset and what we're going to talk about tonight. So we're going to stick to the high level and we're not getting granular. If you want the deeper details on this and you have not attended the first meeting or the first two meetings, the videos are on YouTube on our channel. I would say for the first meeting, skip forward to I think it's the 45-minute mark is when we start going through the scenario itself. But through there is some good material about really understanding the architect methodology and the mindset. So just a quick review. As we think about an architect, what do I do when I'm approaching a problem or a customer? And the first thing I do is research the business that I'm trying to help. What's going on in the marketplace? What are some of the challenges that are faced? What are other companies in that industry doing that works well? What are other companies that are not doing well, doing that is causing them to fail? And I try to do that broad spectrum. Google's my friend. Looking up annual reports, looking up 10Qs, their financials, look up their vision, stuff like that. research, the business industry. Like I said, identify the business strategic goals. So when you're engaging with a company or a customer, what are their strategic goals? Why are they trying to make the change? Don't just go in and be an order taker. Ask the questions of, what is this change going to do to allow you to reach the goals you've set, and help them drive their goals to success. Identify customers' process and pain points. Once you get to that point, help them prioritize what needs to be transformed first. So what does that transformation process look like? How do you attack the low-hanging fruit to give them value quick for their spend, so they can spend more time on the tougher challenges that they're trying to fix. People that have heard me speak before know that I have this philosophy that architects see the world in patterns. We identify patterns. We solve the pattern. We don't solve a specific problem. We solve the pattern, because the problem will fit into a pattern. These patterns are repeatable. And I clicked a button. So think about the patterns. If you look at requirements and challenges, fit them into a pattern. The patterns we're looking at tonight are going to be around sharing and visibility, and we're going to skip through some of the meat. The scenario is probably familiar because we're building, or I'm modifying the original scenario. The other thing is, don't let perfect get in the way of good. Identify the 80-20 rule, or live by the 80-20 rule. Try to identify an MVP, a minimum viable product, for your first release. Get the customer to adopt a iterative mindset that says, look, we need to get the change and get you working better quickly, and then we can iterate and continually improve as we go. Adopt the agile mindset, adopt the Kaizen philosophy of continuous improvement, and help the customer adopt that. Work with customers to align on the solutions, identifying trade-offs and business process. So we shouldn't just say, oh, I want to do this one thing and I want to click a button and have it do this. Identify what it's doing for the process, why they're doing it. Ask the questions. Define program and project charters. Build on those to build the roadmap to success. And then finally, the ultimate goal for me as an architect is to provide a customer a path to reaching strategic goals that are aligned by the technology they used. So my thoughts. So unfortunately, the well-architected group is no more, but they put out a lot of good stuff. Some good friends in that group. But we can thank Mark Braga, Tom Letty, many of the others that put their work into this. But their approach to the architect mindset is very similar to mine, which is make sure it's trusted, easy, adaptable, and composable. So for the well-architected user access, we think about basic tenets that we want to go by. First of all, principle of least privilege. No user should ever get more access or visibility than they need to do their job. And it's not because we don't trust them. It's because mistakes happen. And if they are seeing data that they shouldn't see, it makes their job harder. Make it reliable so your solution is scalable. So as you're thinking about the security and the access, what does that mean for you? How do you make sure that is scalable and easy to add users? David, I'll share this deck later if you want.
Cool.
Yeah. And persona-based approach. So like anything else in experience design mentality, and even with technology that's where people aren't that way, I still try to define the personas, because if you're building a system and you don't know who you're building it for, it doesn't matter what you build, it's not going to work. So identify the personas, use a persona-based approach, and that's not just for security and access, that's for everything else. There are some other tenets: clone with minimal access. So take a base Salesforce profile, strip out all unnecessary user permissions, and start from there. Then we're moving toward permission sets over profiles. Still need profiles for some very specific things, and we can talk about that. And I'll have people shout out why they want to use different profiles, and we'll say yay or no. There's other ways to do it. And then permission set and permission set groups allow you to create functionally based extensions for permission. So once again, thinking about using this framework as you're going. Buzz through the Salesforce security model. I'm already talking too much, so I'm going to stop. Went the wrong way. All right, so think about pillars of. Did I really go for it too much? The two pillars of Salesforce security when it comes to user access, it's what the user can do and what the user can see. So when we think about what the user can do, we're thinking about profiles, permission set groups. So what does that mean? Does everybody here know what that means? And somebody else other than me tell me about what do profiles, permission sets, and permission set groups do? What do they grant the users?
Access.
Yeah. So access to what though? So that's one thing. So access to objects,
Field levels, objects.
Yeah.
And all the records, what they can see and what they can do. Oh, sorry. Only what they can do.
Yeah. Cred. I like cred.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm pretty cruddy. Yeah, absolutely, and more. So think about a profile. You can set login hour restrictions. You can set IP range restrictions. With permission sets, you can set session-based restrictions. So they, certain permissions that can only be used if they're on network versus dialing in from somewhere else. And I date myself by saying the word dialing in, but I just had my modem sound go off in my ear.
It's just not Morse code.
Yeah. So it really is. This is where you talk about the what you can do versus what you can see. And where this ties in, where it's important, is no matter what you give for somebody, or even for org-wide defaults, if let's say an org-wide default is public read-write, and a person's profile or permission set, and they don't, doesn't have access to that object, they don't get to read-write. So it's two pillars of the usability security within Salesforce. So we can go deep. I'm not really going to go into the different types of permission sets. Learn these, know these, understand how you would choose and what pattern they would solve. So if you think about a process permission set, a role-based access control, etc. So we talked about what you can see, and like I said, I don't want to spend all day on this because we're going to get into applying these concepts to the scenario really quickly here. But we think about, now that we've talked about granting people permission, it's how do we grant record level access? So the person has permission to see an object, but that object for org-wide default is set as private. What do you have to do from there? So the first thing is org-wide default. Remember that Salesforce will always respect the most open permission. So you can't set something as public read write and then down below try to make it read only or not visible. Yes, there is new functionality, but it's really filter based. It's not database based. So we'll talk about that in a second. So I always say start at the top, org-wide defaults, make it as restrictive. If there's any reason that at least one person using the system is not supposed to see at least one record, you have to make that org-wide default as private. So you can open up access vertically. That's the role hierarchy. So understanding what the role hierarchy is. So managers, sales teams, etc. Anybody in the upline on the role hierarchy has ownership rights of anything below them, as long as they have permissions to do that. So as long as their profiles and permissions that's allow them. You can open up access horizontally. So now you're talking about sharing rules, and then open up access more flexibly, which is manual sharing and programmatic sharing, which I lump in the same thing because you have a sharing rule, and programmatic sharing will act like a manual sharing rule, especially when you change owners, etc. Can whoever's not on mute go on mute?
I tried to adjust it on the Zoom call, but
I saw that. Thank you. Yeah, feel free to come off mute to questions or speak. So I'm not going to go into the org-wide default. It's in the deck. I'm going to share the deck. You can go through if you need a refresher on these, but these are all basic stuff. So public groups, team selling, these are all things that we want to consider when we're solving and how that works. I was talking about the way that you can actually restrict now, and it's restrictive sharing rules, but they really are just filtered. They're based on filtering, and it will filter your views when you're using the UI, but it will not stop the database from exposing data that you don't want somebody to see. At least as of the last time I looked at them. I might be dated on that, so if anybody can prove me wrong, please do. So jumping into my favorite thing, let's talk personas. When you start looking at a scenario or you get a business case from your company, so let's say you're going in as a consultant and the sales team comes back and says, here's what the company wants to do, here's their process, here are the people that do it. If they don't give you that, you push back and say, okay, so who's doing this job? What are their roles? What does that person's day look like? Or that might be part of your paid engagement. That might be a blueprinting exercise that you do with the customer. Identify the personas, and that doesn't mean each person. It's what is that job function? What is that? Are they a sales leader? Are they a seller? Are they administrator? Are they developer? Do they work the pricing expert? Are they a partner? So understand the personas that are going to be interacting, and then start applying the rules to each of those. And then taking all of that and applying to our scenario. So we're going to jump into the scenario now. I'm going to take a pause here. Just comments before we jump into the scenario, or as people start pulling up their scenario? Bueller? Huh?
I said none for me.
All right. Okay, I'm going to pull up the scenario, and I stopped sharing. I'm pulling up the scenario. And I'm now going to share the scenario. And I have to put that over here, don't I? Oh, you guys, I'm cloning, aren't I? Perfect. Okay. Okay, everybody can see the scenario? All right. So we're going to jump into it, and I'm going to have everybody, let me make sure I've got it big enough. Yeah, our version of Ruth. All right, so hopefully everybody got this ahead of time. I was a little late in getting it out this week. It's been kind of crazy at work the last month. Who wants to tell me who Binary International is? Who wants to tell me why there's only 10 people in the world? There's only 10 types of people in the world. Who can tell me what?
Those who understand binary and not.
I love it. Yep. Those who know binary and those who don't. So, yeah. So okay. Who
I love it.
somebody please jump in. Tell me about Binary International. We're gonna consume this. This is an interactive session.
I don't know.
Yes.
Can somebody tell me what Binary International does?
They sell B2B and B2C across 4 regions.
Okay.
They're global.
So one of the things we do, and thinking like an architect, so we take a business case like this and we break it down. With any luck, the people who present it, whether it's a CTA scenario and you're doing it for an exam, or a session like this because you're trying to get used to consuming that, or your business analyst went out and started putting together business reasons and an overview of a problem that you're trying to solve for your company, or your sales team pitched a transformational project to a company and has come back with all the information they gathered during their gathering that you're going to have to try to solve. Every one of those should at least have the problem overview, a bit about the company. So the first thing I do when I look at any of these is I break it down and I identify the company, find out what they're trying to do, what their goals are. If their goals aren't stated in the overview that I get, I either talk to the people that have the relationship or ask to talk to the people within the company that will give me that information for the company I'm dealing with. We can't suggest to a company that they need to spend money unless you can show that money is driving change that is aligned with their strategic goals. And that's where a lot of salespeople and a lot of consultants fall down, but it's also where a lot of internal support teams fall down because they would decide they want to do something, but they can't tie it to the strategic initiative. So to excel in life and as an architect, make sure whatever you're trying to drive forward with a customer is aligned to strategic initiatives, because that helps you give them the business value that they need to show to either the board or the CFO or their comptroller, whoever's controlling the purse, to get approval. I look at the overview. I try to identify where's the area of engagement. Is it just local, or is it spread around the world? There are reasons I'm looking at that, and Some of that has to do with, do I need single org or multi-org? Are there reasons that would drive me one way or another in any specific scenario? Is there compliance needs? Is there separation of information needs? We used to have the rule of thumb that you tried to stay single org as long as you could until you identified key reasons not to. I still try to stick to that. Oops. My screen just blew up on me. Hopefully everybody else sees what they need though. So pick the information out of the scenario and start to apply that to the areas that you want to look at. Single org versus multi-org. What are the patterns that would drive me that way? What type of users do I have? So let's get into personas. We have to identify the personas. So in this overview, we have, actually, I'm not going to say it. Somebody tell me, let's start listing personas.
Division sales manager.
And I'm going to actually do something here and try to, there we go. Let's see if I can add comments. Can everybody see the comments that I'm adding?
Mhm.
Okay, good. No, let's go back here. Okay, so we're going to go personas. Somebody help me with personas.
We have division sales manager.
Still do what I want.
Regional SVP. Service reps.
I'm still struggling here. Hang on.
Oh.
Why is it not doing?
Just hit the X filter and then highlight.
Yeah. I think your cursor is at the top, right? So maybe that's why it is adding comment there.
Perfect. There you go.
Ta-da! See, that's why I need Ashley, or I mean, that's why I need Brittany. She keeps me straight.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so we have a CTO. Who else? Division presidents.
Regional SVPs.
Okay. Somebody else?
Global services.
So what do global services do?
Global services VP.
Okay.
Regional service manager. The service manager's roll up to global services VP.
Regional SVPs, service reps. And they were managed by regional service managers.
Managers.
Salesforce CEO. Is that
Persona.
Or it's a job title. We don't know yet. We might decide to wrap some of these into that's an executive persona.
Service rep.
Okay.
We have sales rep as well.
Saying what was that last one?
Sales rep.
Sales rep. Yeah.
Service manager.
Okay.
we have, we say CRO? Yeah, CRO and COO.
Okay.
And we have division sales managers as well.
Did we get those? Yeah. We got division sales manager.
Division-
What is
I should know this. I wrote it, right?
that?
Okay.
Regional SVPs. Mm.
Okay. What am I missing?
Sets in front of you, Walter.
Hmm?
Sets in front of you. their service, is that on-site or is that only inbound?
Yes,
That you're gonna have dispatchers, you're gonna have agents, you're gonna have technicians?
possibly.
Outbound. So basically.
So we're making assumptions here, and we're going to call out these assumptions. The assumptions is because some of the things that we sell, what do we sell?
Computers,
And what else?
conferencing.
And what else?
Conferencing solutions.
Yeah, yeah. Professional services and support. So David applied his experience, and he said, okay, so we're going to make the assumption that, well, it's not written here. Things we'll have to verify are there dispatchers? Is there, call center? Is there technicians? And where David's going is probably down the field service lightning route. Yeah, exactly. And that's okay. So you can start thinking about ways that you can solve certain things if they come up. We don't know if that's there yet. We haven't matured this product yet, or this story that far. But understanding what some of these are, there are also things that we do. There's some one very there's one, maybe two very clear personas that are still missing. You have all these personas. What good is a company if this other persona doesn't exist?
Salesforce admin.
Admin. System admin.
Okay, that's not the most important here. They're very important. Company doesn't exist without a customer, does it?
Yeah, I thought about it. Okay.
Now, so let's look at that last paragraph. Can you pick out multiple personas within the customers?
Yes, you have the actual business customer, the buyer, and the employee.
Yes.
So now we look at this and say, okay, this customer is dealing with businesses, and they might be dealing with multiple employees at a business, but I'm also dealing with individuals. So what type of company does this now, think of the patterns, what does this fit into?
B2C.
And B2B. So what is that called? Could be B2B, it could be B2B, B2B2C, or B2B2C. So some of these, who knows, some of these business customers may end up being resellers. So we can take this as deep as we want.
Yeah, they have individual customers as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Yep. All right. So we've talked through solving a lot of the scenarios in this over the last two. This meeting or this session really is around the visibility and security. So I want to pause here for a minute, and I want somebody to kind of read through this. I need a volunteer.
I can read.
No, well, I want to volunteer for somebody to scan through this as far as what we've laid out for the structure, and give me the best shot that you have for a rudimentary role hierarchy drawing. And once you have it, take a picture of it, send it, and share it. Do I have a volunteer do I have a volunteer to do that?
We doing solo or as a team?
We can do it as a team.
What is it remote versus in person?
I don't have a breakout set up on this.
Oh, but I mean, like, have all of the remote people together decide how they want to do their role hierarchy, and then we can huddle together.
All right, so we can do that. Do you guys on the line want to work together to put together a role hierarchy? And then we'll do one here. And I'll give us 10 minutes. I'm going to put me on mute so we don't hear you. All right. And you guys take the, I'm going to just mute my sound so we don't hear you. And you guys take over the microphone and voice. Does that sound good as a group? How many people do we have left in the meeting? Yeah.
7 participants.
All right. We got a few. So I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to mute our room here and I'll leave us on camera. And then we're going to talk about it here in the room real quick
Okay.
and let you guys do that. And I'm going to mute my sound as well. And then we'll give it about 10 minutes.
I think we left off the marketing people.
All right, we are back on our end. Did you guys work something out? Or did you all take a nap?
I think I did something, but not sure.
Yeah.
I have one trying to stick them, so.
I didn't quite make out what you said. Uh-oh, are we having noise problems?
Maybe Janet.
What is, that's off, that's all right. All right, looks like we're having issues on audio all of a sudden. Can somebody try to talk to me?
Yes, I'm able to hear you.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Did you guys work out a role hierarchy, or did you talk about it, or did you just all take a nap?
I tried something, but I wanted to hear from everyone.
Okay. Did nobody else talk?
Everyone is on mute. I thought everyone is working on by themselves.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, who wants to share what they have? It was supposed to be a group exercise, but maybe I didn't. Right. Do we have something drawn?
Yeah, you want to go over it?
Somebody want to hold it up into the front of the camera?
Nicest.
So we have Vanna White coming up to flip the tile.
Spin the letters.
Man, mode.
Can you buy a valve?
Okay, so we put the executives at the top.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing so that comes in and see, and I'm going to see if I can make
Mhm.
that.
Here we go.
Okay, can everybody see the?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, so we put one role per C-level. We thought about doing one role for executives, but that got shut down. More flexibility, so we did one role per C-level for the CRO, CTO, CMO, COO. And then under each, we put the regional SVP, divisional sales manager, and sales rep. Under sales, and then under COO, we put the service version of that. And under the CMO, we put the regional marketing manager. We weren't totally sure what to do with the customer.
So were the customers?
It's not a hierarchy of customers.
Well, there could be. So if you think about the business and you go customer plus, then there is then you can have 3 levels of hierarchy within the customer for customer experience cloud or customer community plus license. For a partner, which right now we didn't call, there's hierarchy, and then they roll up under a user that has control or ownership of that. So you can actually draw out the standard individual customer. That's just customer experience cloud user, customer community user. Doesn't have hierarchy, but customer community plus and partner do. Yep.
So you were saying those have a different hierarchy. They don't have any hierarchy for the partner and customer portals.
Well, they're dotted lined.
Okay.
They're dotted line to potentially a channel manager or a partner manager or the sales team that owns them. But so what does that do for us? What is it we've set up the hierarchy? How does that help what we're trying to solve with this scenario?
Is it
It'll determine the access levels and how you can open up access as you go, navigate through roles.
That is true. And I just shared the wrong thing. So role hierarchy will define visibility, can define who can see what. There are certain things you can set within role hierarchy, and that is the cascading of visibility of cases and contacts, if contacts are not controlled by parents. So if other people own any of those, you set that up when you're setting up your role hierarchy. One thing I'm not covering tonight, and it's because it's not part of the scenario, but things to think about would be for visibility and sharing considerations around territory management 2.0, enterprise territory management. It works. It actually works really well for some scenarios. But we're not talking about that tonight, mainly because I didn't put it in the deck. Why can't I find my... Bear with me. I'm just having sharing difficulties again. There we go. All right, back to the scenario. So we've built out a role hierarchy. We know that that controls visibility within a role. What other things can be done with a role? So if I'm in a let's say I have the role hierarchy and I have the sales team and a division sales team, and it goes down to a mayor sales team and then maybe mayor East Coast, and I'm in a sales team on the mayor East Coast, and there's 5 salespeople in that role that roll up to the mayor East Coast sales manager. Can I see the people's records? So let's say opportunities are private. Can I see the other people in my role? Can I see their records?
In my role?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So what is something I could do there?
Manual sharing.
Well, manual sharing is sure, but that would mean everybody would have to go in and share everything they have. What's another way we can do that?
Sharing settings.
Sharing roles. So sharing
Yes.
settings.
Mhm.
So sharing settings. Write this down. Sharing settings is for Community Cloud, and it dictates what an external user can see. So what we want is sharing rules, and there's a specific type. So you have ownership-based sharing rules, you have role-based sharing rules, you have public groups, you have criteria-based. So in this case, you could do a role-based sharing rule that says everybody in this role can see every record owned by somebody in that role. And that would open up and allow visibility so the team could work together. Or if you have team selling, you can create default account teams. And whenever an account is assigned or the person owns an account, they can choose to add everybody to the account team that's in their group. So you can use team selling. You can also have default opportunity teams, and they can define who would be their default. And when they create an opportunity, they can choose use default opportunity team, and it'll automatically add all their default team members to the opportunity so they don't have to manually do it. And that will grant. But team selling requires them to do that account by account, unless you have a setting that says automatically apply my account team to all my new accounts. But opportunities, you still have to manually select, choose, or populate with mine, or you could build some flow that could do it too, but you'd have to customize. But team selling opens up access and visibility to allow people to view and edit, view and write to an opportunity or to an account. Wasn't me dinging. Has anybody on the phone set up team selling, account teams, opportunity teams?
Mm.
Nobody?
Mhm.
One person. Okay. So once again, thinking about what we're doing here, how you would do it. Let's move on. So we've talked about identifying the personas, creating your role hierarchy. Once you have that role hierarchy, this is also where you can start building out your licensing. So your personas will define the user, and identifying what the user needs to do, what that persona needs to do, will help you define what license they need. So applying the persona to the job role and what they want to do. So when we look at in here, company-wide settings is the requirement. Customer accounts are read-only for all users. What does that mean?
Outgoing is the so
Okay.
customer accounts are the external partner.
Yep.
Right.
And only account owners and account team members can edit an account. So, account team members. Now we know we have a pattern. They're using team selling. We solve team selling by using account teams. We simplify that by helping them have people set up their default account teams. So this is the way, as you're going through, you can start thinking about, okay, this is how I'm going to solve this type of scenario. There's a data steward team that can create, read, edit, and delete accounts. Notice that account owners and account team members can edit account. Nothing about delete in there. So account deletion requires an approval process. I just threw that in because, well, what does that mean?
So data steward team is in, like, would that be no, it won't be a different persona, right? No,
Actually it would be.
it would be a persona.
See,
Yeah.
not all personas are going to be right in the header. As you
Yeah.
start reading the scenario, you might identify new personas.
Yeah.
So you start your role hierarchy and then you go from there. So my thought is the data steward is probably going to fall under the COO
Mhm.
or maybe the CTO.
Okay.
But that's somebody who knows the data, that manages the data, could be in charge of master data management and the customer master, and they decide there's a duplicate account and they're going to delete it or merge it. So how would I do that? How would I provide the ability for account owners and account team members to edit an account?
We can do a role based sharing
With the account teams.
with
So
the account team.
So with the account team, you can use the account team, you can use team selling, activate the account team, and then create the account teams. And then you can have an account team role, and that could be whatever that person's role is. Could be a specialist, could be a customer support, could be customer success, could be the strategic account manager, whatever the role you want. And then you can also say what that role is allowed to do when you assign it. So can they read it? Can they read and edit? So you'd use the account team for that, and account owners. You just make sure the account owners have edit rights on a permission set for the account object, right? And then by the very nature of them owning the record, that gives them the right to edit. So account owners are allowed to do whatever they're granted in their what they can do settings. So in the profile or permission sets, as an account owner, they're allowed to do whatever they want to do. So they can't delete because they haven't been granted delete permission in their profiles, or that's how you control it. Because when you're setting out their profile, you look at principle of least privilege. Least privilege says they can read and edit. They don't need delete, so don't grant them delete. Where problems happen is when people say, "Oh, we're going to give them read, write, create, read, edit, and delete," and all of a sudden they're deleting things, but they weren't supposed to, and they're going to say, "Oh, well, we didn't specifically give them delete," and then we say, "Well, yes, you did." So, principle of least privilege: only give people the permissions that they need to do their job, or that they're allowed to do their job. So let's look at contacts. Contacts are visible to the associated account owner and their managers. Marketing users can read all accounts and contacts. We can assume that contacts are also visible to account team members. But where is the setting that would allow an account owner to view any contact related to their account, so any account contact, even if they don't own it? Where would we have that setting?
Yeah, it's controlled by parent, right?
No. Role hierarchy. So in the role hierarchy, you can define whether or not the account owner can see the contact, or can see all contacts, as long as the contact is not set to control by parent. So you could do control by parent, or you could have it private where it's defined by role and then sharing roles. So it depends on how granular you need to be. So there may be a case where you have certain contacts that are only visible by strategic managers, that even you don't even want the account owner to be able to see. So then you wouldn't give the account owner permission in the role hierarchy, and you'd have to have contacts as private, and then only the account owner, or through criteria based, because there could be settings saying strategic view only. So maybe all the CEOs, nobody can talk to a CEO unless they're a specific level at the company. You can hide those contacts that way. So thinking about how do you open up that visibility. So opportunities can be created by any user, but must be assigned to an account owner upon creation, with the person being created, the person creating, sorry, let me rewrite this. The person that, I must have been half asleep when I wrote that. The person that created is the opportunity being added to the opportunity team. All right. This is actually a scenario I've got going on in a current customer. So I threw this in because it's not really sharing, but it is. So there are some interesting things that happen, especially with opportunity team and ownership. So anybody have an idea of how they would happen? So let's say a person creates an opportunity, and then they hit save, and there's something that happens in the background that automatically through the process reassigns that opportunity to the owner of the account that the opportunity is associated to. But the user creating that still has to finish the process by adding opportunity line items and stuff like that. And the org-wide default on opportunities is private.
Wouldn't it be an after save flow where you run as the system user? That
Yes, it could be.
okay.
Could be. It could be a mix of a before save and an after save. It could be a mix of a before save and a trigger. We had to get elegant on it because if you don't get the timing exactly right, what'll happen is the user creates the opportunity and gets the opportunity but can't edit it. So there's a specific thing you have to write when you're adding them to the team. So it was adding them to the team, and the person who wrote this wrote their logic in two different spots, and one was overwriting the other. So it took a while to debug what they did. And one was giving that user read-write access, and the other was giving read access. DML order of operations. Unfortunately, the last thing to fire was the one that was giving the read access, so it overwrote the read-write. So we'd be able to see it, but they couldn't add the line item. So once we identified what happened. But once again, that kind of understanding is, oh, I can see it. Why can't I add line items? Why can't I make a note? Why can't I add an activity because I called this person? Oh, okay. Take a look at their team role and their team permissions, and make sure you're solving it. So as we're walking through this, and we look at the personas, what we're looking at is people can do this. How does that impact a persona? And what permission do I need to give this persona? So I start making a grid of the persona, of the object, and start saying what the person needs to do. So thinking once again, like an architect, we know I'm talking about the nitty gritty of the admin work to do this, but how do you help them? How do you architect it so the admin knows what to do? Listing the personas, list the objects they're going to be interacting with, list what they have to do, what they're allowed to see, and then from there make it granular. Listing any automation that may impact, such as, oh, we need auto during this process while they're doing it. Here's this process flow. Draw out the process flow. Call out any ownership changes or sharing changes that could happen during that flow that you are going to have to address. You don't have to solve it right off the bat, but at least call it out and then go back and say, oh, how am I going to solve this? And then go through the steps, go through the basics. Is it org-wide default? Is it a sharing role? Am I using Teams? Do I have to do programmatic? And understanding what you have to do with programmatic sharing. If you get into programmatic sharing and you architect it, understand there are a handful of reasons why you would use it, and how programmatic sharing really acts like manual sharing in certain ways, but you also have to create custom sharing rules that are referenced. And the reason I say it acts like a manual sharing is because if you change owner of an object, manual sharing goes away, as does any sharing done by programmatic sharing. And so you would have to reshare. When I'm architecting a solution and someone says, oh, I'm going to use programmatic sharing, I'll ask why. My reasons are usually around, it's a time-based thing. I have a opportunity moving to a legal review. I need my legal team to have access only during this stage. So I can either have it based on it going into stage, or I can have a button at, apply to legal team. And then I can have another flow at the end that says remove access based on moving out of that stage. Things like that, time-based sharing is one of the reasons I use programmatic. David, have you done any on that?
No, but that's actually an interesting idea.
Mhm. Yeah.
It actually, I've never thought of it as a solve problem I had for a customer. Because basically they had contracts that needed to be reviewed by finance. To
Yeah.
make sure it met everything, and then that was it.
Yeah, once they're done, finance doesn't need to be in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
Same scenario.
But,
Yeah.
but basically, the way I sort of cheated, because I basically it was a DocuSign document that went to them first.
Yeah.
And then they approved it and then it went out.
Yeah.
So that was my.
That's well, yeah. I
but
mean,
never thought of basically do it that way.
Yeah.
So okay.
Anybody online ever use programmatic sharing? No. Silence.
It's Marlene. I've used programmatic sharing. I wanted to share records for a property when a guest was arriving 60 days before the arrival, and then 6 months after they departed. And so just like you said, time-based, right? And they could only see those records for those 8 months. And so we would see what user had access to the property and the time frame.
Excellent use. Yeah. And that's right in line. So you look at a pattern. And when we talk about seeing the patterns as an architect, Marlene saw the pattern of, I have a finite period of time that I need to grant access to this person or to this group of people. I know when it starts. I know when it's going to end. I can programmatically add them and revoke that based on those criteria, instead of having to go in and manually share, because that would be the only other way, is having somebody manually do it. So perfect example of good use of programmatic sharing.
And I had very large volumes, so manually wasn't possible either. It had to be done automatically. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's a really good use case. But that's when I talk about seeing the patterns, that's a pattern. Oh, I have a time-based need to share something. Oh, there's a pattern. I have a group of people that I want to have work together that always need to edit something. Oh, I'm going to use Teams. That's a pattern. So identify the patterns that you're solving for, and then you can apply the right tool for it, or the right solution. And sometimes those change.
I have a question. So when you programmatically share, it does not override manual sharing, right? That still stays. It just gives additional access, right?
So you could have manual sharing of read only for something, and you have another sharing rule that's written programmatically that gives them right. The most open permission always prevails.
Okay.
Except for restrictive sharing rules / filters that I don't think work well anyway. But that's just my personal feelings, so don't go by mine. But yeah, bottom line is the most open rule wins. So you can't restrict down, but you can open up down. So if you add another sharing rule that grants them read, then that right is going to be. And that's another one. You could have where they're part of an account of an opportunity team, and their role only has read.
Right.
Yet at a certain stage, they need to be able to do edit. So during that stage, you give them through programmatic process, you give them the right access.
Correct. Yeah. It extends the access. Yeah. It cannot revoke what you get via manual sharing. It probably extends the access. Yeah.
And you can revoke the manual, but you would have to actually delete that. Delete that line. That is because manual uses a sharing reason called manual, and you could actually programmatically remove that if you wanted. It's done when you, like I said, it's done automatically when you change owners.
Got it.
But you can bypass that Most people don't or wouldn't. All right. So we talked about that. Cases are visible to the account owner, the customer support team, and managers. Professional services cases for at-risk projects can only be seen by management, the project team, and the account resolution team. What are ways that you would, number one, what would org-wide defaults have to be on cases? Private, yep. So, and that's where you start at the top. What if I have to restrict this? The first thing I have to do is make org-wide default private, because once again, going down, I can open up, but I can't restrict. So thinking about this, cases are visible to the account owner. On my royal hierarchy, I could say I see all cases to my account. But I don't want to do that in this case, because why?
Yeah, there are specific cases which we don't want to see everybody, right?
Yeah, the professional services case for at-risk projects. Maybe I don't see in here where it says that the owner should see that. Now, we might validate that because it could be the owner needs to, because they're also the relationship holder. But right now, the requirement is nope. So, org-wide default of private. Criteria-based sharing rule for those cases, and you can even have a rule that says, you I'm trying to think how would say it would be. Yes, criteria-based sharing rule that only. So two things. One, it's criteria-based sharing rule, but also project team or the account resolution team, one of those would be the owner of the case. And the project team could include the account owner, so the account owner may see it anyway. Or the account resolution team may include the account owner. So, and if that's the case, and account resolution team always includes the account owner, then you can set the account owner visibility at the role hierarchy, and then just deal with cases being private and opening up through criteria-based sharing and case team membership. Is anybody here? So we talked about team selling, right? You heard about support teams? Have you heard of support teams?
I heard of it.
Okay. Exactly. So think about when you swarm, when they do case swarming, you can actually add a bunch of people to a case as a part of the case team, and they all have access to the case. So, let's see, where else did I add some fun stuff? Thinking about looking at patterns. So once again, thinking about the pattern, that is a pattern where I have cases, but I have specific types of cases that only a certain team can see. Think about how you solve that, apply that pattern, recognize the pattern, and apply the solution. I have a team, a project and account resolution team. Oh, that means I can use support team, case teams to manage that. Once again, as an architect, breaking it down, identifying the pattern, solving the pattern.
Breaking.
Well, sir, I have a quick question for you. So you
Yes,
mentioned
please.
criteria-based sharing rules, and then you mentioned that you had to do programmatic sharing when you were trying to restrict visibility on an opportunity when it was in a certain stage.
Say that again.
Okay, so I recall earlier you said that you had to do programmatic sharing for when an opportunity was in a particular stage.
Yep.
Okay.
Not only for that scenario. So I looked at the scenario. my scenario is legal review. The stage is legal review. I only want my legal team to see that opportunity and be able to do things to that opportunity during that stage. So it's a time-based. It doesn't have to be this. It could be something else. It could be, on October 7th to October, 14th.
I was just wondering if you could leverage criteria-based sharing role for the opportunity in that case, or it's just impossible.
No. because
No.
the time-
Yeah.
The time, like, they can only see it till Friday. You can't control that with the sharing rules.
But
Yeah.
if it was just in a stage, then it could have been shared.
Well,
right?
So
That was my question.
Oh, if it's in a stage. Okay.
Yeah,
so you could,
okay.
but with programmatic sharing, you can actually add notification. So the legal team is notified, and now they are notified to do something. Yep.
Put them on the clock.
You put them on the clock.
So why would you
Yeah.
not do trigger-based?
Huh?
Why would you not do trigger-based instead of time-based and give them an opportunity in case it took longer?
You could. What you on that case, I would actually do. I would do trigger based on that. Yeah. But there are other time. There are other time.
Legal sees
yeah.
it, legal does the review,
Mhm.
and they say done.
It's so if you think about it's time box, whether it's moving from one stage to another, which we don't know what the time is, or in a case like Marlene was talking about, it's once they make the reservation to 6 months after, that you can define a time. So but the pattern's still the same. It's a finite period of time, whether it's defined by time or defined by some other triggering event. But it's moving from something from something to something else that would trigger the change. And time based is just it's exiting the time period. An event window would be just it's changing the triggering event to say no more. Yep, 100%. But it's still really that pattern of I only want this person to have limited amount of access to this during a certain period of time, whether I can define that time or I can by dates, or I define that time by movement of a stage or
This is
or
the only
events.
Salesforce who sees what when.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But that's a good. So
Salesforce is famous for that, but yeah.
the other thing is there are considerations about criteria-based sharing you always want to consider when you're architecting. Number one, limit the number you use, because there are limits to how many criteria-based you can do. And there are also potential for impact on performance and latency, because every time with criteria-based, every time a record's open, it's actually has to evaluate against it versus being written to a sharing table and sharing calcs. So those are considerations when you're choosing what time, what type. I try to limit my criteria base to as little as possible, and use it only for very clear cut cases that are not going to be a drain on system resources.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. But once again, thinking about the patterns and when you would use it. Okay, what did I do in the marketing section? Anybody read that? What did I add for sharing there? My eyes are going buggy. I got new glasses. They're like half an axis off of my left eye. I keep having to
You have a
tweak them.
tricky one in the third bullet here.
There we go.
Yeah, the CMO wants the ability to automate round robin assignments to a team of dedicated marketing users if the prospect's product of interest is unknown. And then after it's assigned, then the record can only be seen by the assigned user and their manager. So at that point, would that be a trigger-based sharing rule? Or are you going to do that programmatically?
Nope, that could actually be.
I've installed a package to do round robin assignment.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Well, the round robin assignment itself, yeah.
Set of packages that do this.
So it's kind of a red herring because I mixed it into round robin. So the round robin is just saying who it's assigned to. Okay, I've got a team and it's going to go there. The real thing, so here's another thing about dissecting these scenarios. Break apart the two requirements. One requirement is I want to assign this via a round robin out of, I've got 5, 10, whatever. I do a round robin, and yeah, there's a lab app out there now that does round robin assignments framework that you can adjust, or you can write your own really simple. And then once assigned, the record can only be seen by the assigned user and the manager. So this is a prospect, number one. So think about this scenario and this pattern. Marketing is assigning a prospect. Marketing is assigning a prospect. What is a prospect? What object would that be?
A lead, yep.
Okay, so now we're talking about leads. What's leads? What is leads OWD now based on this one criteria?
Private.
Right. And why is it?
Because somebody should be able to see it.
Exactly. So once again, we're starting to recognize the patterns, right? The pattern is if somebody is not allowed to see a specific record in an object, you have to have that object's OWD private. That's rule number one. Think about those patterns. No other way around it. So as you're walking through this, go through that process, understand it, and then now we have basic ownership base. So if the only people that can see that is the lead owner once it's assigned and their manager, what are you counting on?
Or what do you call it in the role hierarchy?
And role high, exactly. So it's their manager and the manager's managers, and you go from there. What if I did not want the manager of the owner to see? Hang on. To see the case or to see the lead.
Disable control by parent.
So no, it's not going to be controlled by parent.
In the role hierarchy, can't you?
Nope.
Oh, assign the manager as someone lower than.
No.
No?
You do. But what objects can you change that on, and what objects can't you change that on?
I think only on the custom we can do, standard we cannot do.
Exactly. Standard objects you cannot change the inherit or visible by.
Yeah, grant access using
Yeah.
hierarchy something.
Yeah. So you can only do that with custom. So if for some reason they didn't want the manager to be able to see that, you would have to go with the custom object for leads. So
Well, that's a whole can of worms.
yeah, but and I will tell you, I call this out because there is a scenario where in the real world we had the HR department wanting to use cases for people to file complaints. Obviously, if they're filing a complaint against their manager, the manager can see it. So there's two options around that you can do.
Go to a different system.
Create an HR system that's different where the hierarchy is not matching. That would be one reason for two orgs, or create a custom object that you can prevent that from happening. It all depends on how much work HR is doing. If HR is trying to use Salesforce to do all their HR work, create a separate HR system that does not respect, that where the role hierarchy is, everybody's in one role under HR. But yep, 100%. So these are things, once again, think about as you're solving, think of the patterns. I'm clearly calling out that the manager is allowed to.
Could you cheat the system also and have a permission set that excludes, like, because it'd be a filter, never mind. I think you should filter out by a record type. Could you just use custom metadata?
No.
And lock out that way?
Can you programmatically remove access?
Not for that scenario. Not for hierarchy based visibility. Yeah. You can't bypass it because remember, Salesforce will always Now, you could try your restrictive, but that's not going to stop them. Because like I said, restrictive sharing rules are filters. And
That's a good one.
Yeah.
so,
I want to walk around in circles, make another solution.
well, you nailed it
Yeah.
right. The first comment out, separate org or a custom object that would handle that. And you could do that and they just wouldn't get the full case scenario. So if you think about things like that, there are things, knowing that you can't stop visibility from vertically other than not granting access to the case object. But then what if the manager wants to complain about their manager? They wouldn't be able to do it. So, you could try to game it, but think the other thing is, as you're architecting, don't try to get fancy in solving something. Keep it simple. The most simple choice is usually the correct one, as long as you're fitting within the constraints of the system. Yeah, exactly. But like I said, me, if it came down to it, and that was the only thing they were doing, then I would do a custom object and filter it that way. But if there was other reasons why they wanted to do something, but just understanding that you can't change that setting on standard objects is very important. I've seen other interesting ones where on cross team selling, a salesperson helped out another sales team, and they did not want the person's manager seeing the numbers for that deal. And this was a real estate company, and it was like everybody had their own private Rolodex. So we had to be creative on the way we gave visibility to opportunities, and then make sure they weren't an owner, and that the sharing wouldn't be reflected in as part of their team's deals, and it was crazy. So that was a fun one.
One
So
other thing, I have one quick question. Grant access using role hierarchy, like if I disable that, I mean, if it's just a manager situation.
grant access using role hierarchy. Try to do that on lead.
Cannot.
Right, because lead that's what we were just talking about. You can't change that setting on standard objects.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Yep. But you can on custom objects.
Yes.
All right, let's see if we can find another one. We're going to skip through. Okay, multiple. Marketing, mainly company. Okay, only managers can reassign prospect records. So prospect record being a lead.
It depends.
So
It could be account contact. It still could be account contact. Depends on the process.
In this scenario, though, we've established that the prospect is lead. Yeah. So we're calling I purposely put in prospect so people start. Oh, what object is prospect? Oh, it's lead. So start identifying different words used in industry for the same things. That's the other thing about, as an architect, you're going to hear words that mean the same thing, and it's up to you to help really define it. Is it a prospect? Is it a lead? And just let everybody know, I thought I plugged myself in, but I plugged myself into an unplugged charge.
No worries. We'll be right back. Hang tight, y'all. Maybe take just a second. Thanks so much for everybody participating today.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us know. I wonder what happened.
Oh,
There-
Walter like unplugged something and plugged it back in. That's why.
There's a short between the chair and the keyboard for the presenter.
User error.
Oh my gosh. Where are y'all joining from? What part of the world?
I'm
I'm in
from
Orlando.
Orlando, yeah.
I'm from California.
Same here.
I'm from Orlando as well.
Oh, very cool.
All right, I'm back. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. I'm glad my computer came right back to where I was. Yeah, that was Walsh being a short between his chair and his keyboard, and I plugged it. It said plug in your power, so I did, but I forgot to plug the power into the wall. So doesn't help to plug it into the computer, but not the wall. All right, so calling the room to order. We're back online. Brittany, we're back online. I'm such a taskmaster. Okay, so prospects from companies that have revenue of more than $10 million can only be viewed by a high-value customer marketing specialist.
Well, that's me.
That's you.
I mean, this is our.
Now you can have your favorite. Now you can have your favorite thing you kept wanting to use.
Oh, what's it? Oh, the custom trigger-based sharing. That like
Criteria-based sharing.
criteria-based sharing. Now I get it. Okay.
So based on the criteria that,
Sorry, what?
and you could actually have a validation rule. You could actually have a validation rule that only allows if they try to assign that to a user that doesn't have a high value specialist flag. So let's say the high value marketing works with high value customer sales reps. If they try to assign it to somebody, you could have some type of validation rule that says, nope, you can't assign to that user.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Could that also be another persona?
That would, is that a new persona? There we go. So notice you're adding to your persona list as you're reading through a scenario. Not all the personas are going to be in the overview. You're going to start seeing job-based roles. So this persona is a high-value customer marketing specialist. Yeah, that's right. And there might also be an associated HVC SS. That's been a long day. Must be getting close to 9 o'clock.
No, for sales.
Yeah.
Oh,
So once again,
And you may also have customer service as well.
yeah.
You may have concierge level service people.
Yeah, absolutely. So think about these patterns as you're looking through. What defines a persona, and what are things that I would do? So it could be a record type. It may be, instead of a criteria based, it could be record type, and it's it's still be a criteria based sharing based on the record type, but as much as I try to get away from using criteria based, sometimes you just can't. It'd be nice. It would be nice if there was an LDV problem with high value customers, though, wouldn't it? No, we just became a $10 billion company because. So we'll be talking about large data volumes. One of the next scenarios coming up, and how to approach that and things to spot. But one of the things that you think about when you have large data volumes is things like, how does criteria-based sharing get impacted or impact performance due to the number of records I'm trying to filter or use as criteria? So I would never want to use criteria-based sharing if I've got 50 million records that meet that criteria. Or even 5 million records that meet that criteria.
So the takeaway is a good architect looks at the impact.
Yes.
Not only on the usage, but on limits that Salesforce likes to have,
Mm-hmm.
license costs that Salesforce likes to sell,
Mm-hmm.
and the user experience, because you don't want the pages to take 3 hours to load.
That's right. Or just time out, and you get the oops.
Yes.
Redefine your query. All right, so going through some more. We're once again, because we're approaching this and we're trying to solve the sharing, we're going through and dissecting the scenario, finding my personas and sharing. So based on the type of opportunity, product interest, yada, 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 the opportunity needs to have a series of tasks generated at a time of creation to provide the seller with a plan of action. Opportunity plans, sales plans. But the sharing-based side of this, tasks can only be seen by the opportunity team members only. That's redundant.
Are you the last one? Large customers?
Say again?
They're the last one, large customers.
I will in a minute. So how do I control tasks?
From activities?
Yeah. But it's who gets to see the task. So research it, let me know. Tell me what you find out. It might be. Did we just spot a pattern?
Yeah, it's just the org by defaults and the hierarchy that we talked about.
So interesting enough, it used to be you assign a task to a user and the only person that could see it would be the user and their manager. And then you start, there became a time where you can actually assign a task to more users. And the byproduct of that was it created a task for each user. So tasks are a little tricky, but once again, team membership and controlled by parent. And the assumption sales managers are either part of the opportunity team or controlled through hierarchy. So what did you want me to look at? The large customers. The large customers have multiple locations with different shipping addresses for their billing address. If company headquarters relocates, the company's billing address needs to be populated to all child locations and while preserving the child location, shipping and company hierarchy may be 5 levels deep. That's
How do you 5 levels deep of a company?
Hmm?
So you're gonna have headquarters in another location and another location underneath that and another location underneath that?
It could, yeah. Yeah, it could be. It could be. So you think about some of these global companies. You got global headquarters.
Right.
You got theater headquarters. So it could be EMEA.
Yeah.
You got country headquarters, city headquarters, or county, or So yeah. Some of the big conglomerates, they have multiple, much more than 5.
Yeah, I've only run into where I've had parent child. That's it.
Yeah.
I've never had to go deeper. That's what caught my eye.
Oh yeah, no, I've dealt with some of the largest companies in the world. It's fun, and they each have their own buying centers, and
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Division. Anybody see any other sharing in there? What did I add? Maybe not. Oh, here we go. I think we talked about this already. For an opportunity to move to close one, a legal contract must be signed and associated with the option. This is a legal review stage. I probably forgot to put in the legal team can only have access to the opportunity during this stage. Would have been a good thing to write there.
You have it at the end. During this stage, only the account owner and the legal team.
Oh, okay. I did put it there. It's been for those of you, I apologize. I'm getting a little punchy. It's been a long day.
You got there enough. It's up to you if you want to keep going.
Yeah, no, we're mostly, yeah, we're done. I mean, it's so customer service. It's the same thing. As you read through this, you're going to start seeing the patterns. The patterns are the same. The personas may be different. Identify the personas. Identify the objects they need access to. Identify the process they're going through, and how visibility and sharing and access will impact their need to do the job, and apply those patterns. So understanding the patterns of, base pattern. What's the least permission I can set, or the most open I can set, or by default, based on the least permissive persona I have. So if at any time you have a persona that's not allowed to see a record within an object, it's private. It's that simple. If you have if you have a shared, any user across the company can at least view all the records in an object, you can have public read. If you are insane and you want all users to read and write, then you can have public read write. And then we'll be sending you to Nurse Ratchet.
Okay, Chief.
Huh?
Okay, Chief.
Very
good movie.
So
I think we may be the only ones in here that know what it means.
Anyway, so think of these patterns. If I have a specific criteria, if I have only certain people can own a record, these are patterns that we know how to solve. You can have rules that enforce ownership based on a type. So think about the scenario where there's a pharmaceutical company that does drug trials, and they have one of the drugs they're doing is a psych med, and the side effects get reported as cases. The only people that can see the psych med cases would be a psych med team. If there is a death case, so somebody died from something, only a specific team is allowed to see that. So patterns like that make you think about, number one, object setting, number two, record ownership, number three, criteria or team-based, and moving down the line from there. And really understanding that the way sharing is designed for visibility is based on going the most restrictive at top, because you can only open visibility up. Yes, there's restrictive sharing rules, but we all know restrictive sharing rules, once again, is just filtering.
So Walter, when you say that, can you expand on that? So if I was a user and there was a restrictive sharing rule against whatever my user is, in the UI, I wouldn't be able to see it. But if I tried to use data loader, I could see it.
Yep. Yeah. Because it's filtering. Yeah. Or reports, dashboards, stuff. Yep. Now, I'm asking the group here, somebody fact check me on that, because that's 3-year-old data that I'm using from there, because I haven't looked at them since, because they turned me off so bad. I just haven't looked at them. Because there's better ways to, I just don't think restrictive sharing rules work. If I'm going to use a restrictive sharing rule, I'm actually going to set up my sharing properly. to limit it. But it was based on basically record filtering. So versus, hard database rules. Yep. All right. So I did a whole lot more talking than I wanted to tonight. Once again.
But you need a 2-minute break.
Huh? I did have a 2-minute break when I forgot to plug my power in.
You had to draw diagrams. Come on.
Yeah, and I had you guys draw diagrams. I'm hoping you guys got some good information out of this, and I really do want more interaction as we keep going through this. Don't be afraid to jump in. This is for you guys, so it's I can't imagine listening to me talk for 2 hours is fun. It puts me to sleep.
You have so much knowledge to share. I actually really appreciate everything you share with us, and I learn something every time.
Well, I'm really happy to share. I do want to hear other people's ideas. I don't know everything.